the way that we think determines the way that we feel, and the way that we feel determines our actions. So if we're thinking in a way that is negative, that is incongruent with what we truly want out of life, we're going to feel a certain way, and that feeling will determine the action that we take.
Welcome to the Carla Rand Show, a weekly podcast designed to dig into the lives of everyday people. People who are making a positive impact, people who have risen above and overcome obstacles. Insights and stories from ordinary individuals who inspire us all towards the truly extraordinary. Here's your host.
Hey, it's Carla, and I just got to talk to my friend Andrew Catella. He's a fellow fitness and nutrition coach, but he does more than that. He talks about mindset as well, and it was so interesting to hear his story. He talked about his journey with getting beyond just that kind of physical, what you see, and really into the mind. What are our limiting beliefs? Why do we do what we do? What are some things that maybe we need to change or be open to changing so that we can actually progress in life? Whatever challenges come our way, we can make progress there. And he also shared about how he's a man of faith. He talked about God and what that means for him. So we were able to really connect on this one, really share a lot of really good mindset stuff. So I know you're going to get a lot of value out of this conversation, and let's get into it. All right, so I'm here today with Andrew Catella. Andrew, really nice to have you on the Carla Rand Show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Yeah, so Andrew, a lot of people aren't going to know who you are. And so I'll just give them a little bit of context. So Andrew is actually a fitness and nutrition coach like I am. And that's kind of how we met. We got chatting together, and Andrew was really good at we could just share ideas, bounce ideas off each other, talk through things. And actually a lot of the people that you work with, Andrew, are the similar type of people that tend to come to me, right, with Power Fitness Online. And so you've done a lot of stuff, but when you're kind of running your own business, there's a lot of stuff that has to take place. And I think, Andrew, you figured that out, a lot of this mindset stuff. So we're going to get into that. But before we kind of start talking about all of that kind of fun mindset stuff, let's just kind of go back. And why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are? Where did you grow up? A little bit maybe about your family, just so we have some context.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually was born in the Philippines, and we moved to the States when I was about 4 and my brother was 2.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents, my dad moved out to the States first to get a job as a nurse. And then we moved here a year later. So we kind of had that experience growing up, going to a new territory and environment that we had no idea what to expect.
Mm.
And then from there, going to school and developing relationships with people that I didn't know, especially coming from a different country, was really eye-opening. So it was definitely a weird process at first, but I got used to it very quickly because I was so young.
Yeah, you said you were 2?
I was 4. My brother was 2.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So yeah, so then I started going to school here, preschool. That's when it started.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, I moved to probably multiple high schools. So again, that reintroducing of new environment and people. So I've kind of had that happen multiple times to me. So that was kind of my experience going to school as a kid. I also have 2 sisters, 2 younger sisters. So there's 4 of us all together. So it super thankful to have siblings.
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't been back to the Philippines since I was 10. It's been over 20 years now.
Mm.
So, definitely due for a vacation.
Yeah.
But yeah, and, I'm married to the love of my life, and we have 2 children going on 3 very soon. So
Nice.
There's a lot to think about and a lot of preparation. So that's kind of going in the background at the same time of running my business too.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are some big obstacles that you had to go through? I mean, moving around as a little kid, it sounds like you were moving quite a bit, different schools, changing. When you look back at that now, do you think that impacted you either for the positive or the negative, kind of as an adult now looking back, or how did that part affect you?
Yeah, I think at the time, it definitely felt negative because it's these are the people I don't know. These are my friends. And why are we moving here? I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to start all over. But looking back on it, it's definitely increased my my social network in a sense. Like I was able to know more people and be able to reintroduce myself multiple times and kind of build that confidence in a sense that I thought I didn't have before. But looking back on it, that's actually helped because I know how that felt.
Mm.
And when I connect with people, mainly my clients, I can sense when they have that feeling of how I felt. Like, I feel like I'm kind of like the new kid here, or I don't know what to do. I feel helpless. Can you help me out? So I'm able to directly connect with them because I can feel that energy off of them. So I feel like that definitely helps in that sense.
That's interesting because I came from like a very different, like I was born, in the Edson Hospital and like I stayed in the same house until I was 14 and then we moved like a mile
Hmm.
away. And so same church, same like school, same everything. So like so grounded, right? In that way, or whatever people say grounded. But like, yeah, so I never experienced that moving around a lot. So I think for me, and I don't know, maybe it's different for everybody how they perceive it and how it impacts them. But I know for me, I was very
Hmm.
shy for a long time because I was used to always seeing the same people doing the same thing. So when there was somebody new, I was very like, oh, I don't know how do I deal with this, right? It was like, oh man, like
Yeah.
it just felt uncomfortable. But I imagine you would have had to get over that. Like I had to get over that, but you probably got over that pretty fast when you were still pretty young, hey?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I feel like I had no choice.
You just had to make it work. So how was
I just
school
had to
for
make it
you?
work.
Was school like were you pretty academic? Did you enjoy school? Did you just sort of get through and survive or
Man, school for me, interesting. Like probably from preschool all the way up to like halfway through college, I did not enjoy school. Like
mm,
I was a decent student, but I never had the desire to apply myself because I was never really interested in what I was learning. I think the thing that interested me the most was science. That was probably my favorite subject,
okay.
but it was still never to the point where it's like, oh, I love this. I want to study it and like learn everything possible. So halfway through college, I originally went to college for nursing, and that was not my desire whatsoever. So I finally made the decision with the help of my wife. She pushed me. She's like, you know what? Why are you doing this? This is not your passion. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna fall back into radiology, be a radiologic technician. Totally flopped the interview. I think they could see right through me that I didn't even want this job.
Uh,
So after that, she was like, you know what do you really love to do? And I always had a passion for helping people, and I was getting into fitness myself. But I never thought of that as a career, something that I could do with my life. So she pushed me to pursue that. So I eventually graduated with a bachelor's in kinesiology. So with a focus on exercise science, that was the first time that I actually enjoyed what I was doing in school,
mm.
like just the way the body moves, and it applied to what I was doing at that time, which is working out. And eventually, I started just training people and started helping people change their bodies. And that's kind of how I started with everything.
Cool. Yeah, I think so many people just go to school, they go to college, they go to university, and they're just kind of going through the motions. I know for me, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I became a teacher, majored in music, and minored in English. Now, I would have done phys ed, but at the time, like my husband and I had just gotten married, and he was going to major in phys ed. So I'm like, well, if we both major in phys ed, and of course, this is like, what am I, like short term thinking. It's like, well, we want to be able to
Hmm.
teach at the same school, and if we're both doing phys ed, we won't be able to. So I might as well do something else. And at that time, my knees were shot. So I thought, well, I can always sing and do music, but I won't be able to run and do all that. So this is what I'll do instead. And it's funny because as I was going through university, I started going to this fitness class, and then they pretty soon they wanted me to get certified. So I got certified. And so there I am, like going through school, but like really on the side, kind of doing what I actually love. So I'm taking all these extra courses
Hmm.
on the weekends and writing exams and doing all this kind of stuff. And then I'm teaching classes, and it was like, yeah, it's just funny how like when you really have a passion, you're going to figure out a way to do that one way or another, and you'll come around to it, whether you
Yes.
do it in university or whether it takes you do it on the side or whatever. But that's cool. So what would you say, like you go through your life, you got your training, and now as an adult, what are some things that you've maybe struggled with that have kind of held you back? Because I know we had this conversation and you said there was some big mindset blocks that you had. And I'm thinking a lot of our
Hmm.
listeners probably have mindset blocks that they're maybe not even aware of. So what are some of those mindset blocks maybe that you've had, and what are you doing to kind of get over those? What are some steps that you've taken?
Yeah, man, this is this can go really deep, but I'm not going to go too deep on this because we could be here for hours.
Yeah.
But this is a good question because I'm actually on this journey right now and I'm very passionate about it. But the big mindset blocks that I've just recently realized was when I was a kid. Like I never felt like I was good enough or worthy.
Mm.
Basically from other kids, from other adults, just like kind of looking down on me and being like, hey, you don't belong here. What are you doing? Like comments that are made. And I just felt like I was almost like an outcast because of that. I didn't feel like I felt like I had to do something in order to be accepted. So then I would be like more of in a mindset of performance. I have to perform. Otherwise, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy to be accepted by my peers, by my friends, by my family. So that affected me throughout the rest of my, my life till today. But I'm coming to the realization that, I am good enough. I am worthy. I don't have to prove myself or do something to be accepted, but I already am that way. So it's done. Definitely been doing a lot of inner work to switch that around. And it's crazy because this has been totally like taken to a new direction with my coaching program. Is I'm helping people do that now too. It's more than just fitness. It's more than just losing weight, changing your body, eating healthy, which I've done for the majority of my life. And that's actually why I got into fitness, because of those limiting beliefs and those mindset blocks. I thought that, if I'm not good enough, if I'm not worthy, and if I'm not accepted, maybe if I change my body, that'll fix everything. Because I was always a skinny kid growing up. I felt weak. Mm-hmm. So then when I did, I got a little bit more confident. I felt better, but the majority of my inside was still that same kid. It didn't change what was really going on inside. Mm-hmm. So now my passion, my purpose is to help people change their insides so that their outsides can directly reflect with how they are truly feeling. And it's not just like a mask that they have to put on every day. It's not just a Band-Aid that they're putting on a wound that they'll continuously have to look out for every single day. It's going to be a true transformation. It's going to be a cure to the actual disease that they've been facing, which I have faced for the majority of my life. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really powerful. And that's definitely something I think that everybody really is going to be faced with at some time in their life. And of course, like with my fitness and nutrition and my kind of coaching program, it's very similar in that way. I always talk to people like we have the physical, we have the mental, and we have the spiritual. And I want all of those things to be tapped into and to be optimized. Because if you just have one, but you don't have the other ones, then you're going to be dysregulated. Like you're not going to be where you need to be. You're going to be struggling. So I feel like you need to love and accept yourself as you are. And then because you love and accept yourself and you see your worthiness, then you want to look after your body, not, oh, I'm such a mess. I got to look this way and I got to do this to my body so that I become worthy and valuable and loved and accepted. Right. So it's a huge mind shift. And
it is.
Yeah. So how did you kind of get there? Like what has you done that's helped you?
What I've done was really go back to who I was. I mean, you could call it inner child work. You could call it whatever you want, but I went back to points in my life where I felt like that person who wasn't good enough. So I would literally take the time every single day to think about that, to reflect on it, and to talk to myself in a sense and tell myself that, hey, that's not true. And this is the truth. The truth is the opposite of what you've been feeling, that you are good enough, that you are worthy. And everything that I've been told from other people, because a lot of people see stuff in me that I've never seen, and I just found that out in like the last year. Hey, you're this, you're confident, you are intelligent, you you're a visionary, like all these things that I was like, what? I'm really that person? And it was like multiple people that have seen that and told me, but I never saw it in myself. So I think I had to, in a sense, borrow belief from other people so that I could eventually instill that belief in myself and then go back to my child and be like, hey, don't believe what these other people are telling you. This is who you really are. Don't, because if you let this take over your life, this is going to run your life. You're not going to live to your full potential. I'm also a man of faith, so you're not going to live to you're not going to be able to share your God-given gifts with the world. So it's without going into too much detail, that's kind of the work that I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you work out on a consistent basis, you can relate to this, but it's kind of like doing reps when you're working out. Like, how many squats are you doing a day? How many push-ups? How many pull-ups? You have to train your beliefs like you would train your muscles. Otherwise, you're going to go back to the way it was. If you don't use it, you lose it. You're going to go back to your feelings of not feeling good enough and unworthy. Mm-hmm. So you got to train those muscles until you get to the point where it's just automatic and you know who you truly are. And it's almost like effortless. Hey, this is just me. And then you're living life in a more effortless, free, and positive way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that you shared that. So tell me, why is mindset so important? Why do we need to look at our mindset? Why can't we just go through life and just do whatever needs to be done?
Oh my gosh. Because that's what I've been doing for like the last 10 years is just do. And then eventually I got to the point where I just burnt myself out and literally got to the point where I almost just gave up on myself and my family. And I did not want to continue doing what I was doing because my mind wasn't right. It's almost like you are building on a foundation of sand. You're putting all this stuff, you're building a house on a foundation of sand. You could get the best quality materials to build that house with. It could be super strong, super sturdy, but if that foundation is still sand, when that storm comes rolling in, it's going to destroy it. It's going to crumble. If you build it on solid rock, which is your mind, if you have a positive mindset, you build a strong house on that. When that storm comes, when life hits you, which it will, you're going to be able to stand through the test of time. It's almost like that. So you have to build that foundation first, which is in your head, because it runs every action that we take subconsciously. We don't even think about it, but our minds literally determine how I react to every situation that happens in my life, whether that's with how my morning routine is, my conversations with my wife, how I react to my kids, how I treat my kids, how I treat myself and the people around me. Mm-hmm. That determines everything. So if my mind is not right, everything else will fall apart eventually, and you're not going to feel like yourself. You will crumble. You're going to get to the point where, what am I really doing with my life? This doesn't feel right. This doesn't really feel like who I am. And I've felt that. So going back to changing my mind and aligning myself with who I truly am, every action that I take moving forward now feels like, hey, this is natural. This is me. This is who I was created to be, because I did the most important thing. I didn't focus on the outer parts that would just kind of be the things that people would see, but I focus on the inner part where would make the biggest impact on all the people in my life, and basically just strengthening my roots, because that's the core of who I am. If my roots are not there, it doesn't matter how much you water it, how much you tend to that plant. It's not going to show up in the way that you want it to show up.
So would you say then it's basically we have to fix our thinking, and our thinking comes from what we believe, right? Like you have thoughts, you have beliefs coming at you. So we have to fix our thinking in order to change and improve those kind of roots. That's basically what you're saying?
Basically, yeah, because the way that we think determines the way that we feel, and the way that we feel determines our actions. So if we're thinking in a way that is negative, that is incongruent with what we truly want out of life, we're going to feel a certain way, and that feeling will determine the action that we take. A lot of people, they self-sabotage when it comes to changing their bodies. Let's say you start in a fitness program because you're in a place of negativity. Maybe you feel ashamed of how you look and how you feel. You're like, okay, so I need to change my body. But really, you're not in alignment with who you are, because that person who's setting those goals, so let's say lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds, is the person who's feeling ashamed and unworthy and not good enough. So if that person takes the action of losing the weight, it's going to feel like a big weight on their shoulders. They're going to feel chained down. They're going to feel like every move is like moving through molasses, like super heavy. And they're going to get to the point where, this, I can't do this. I can't sustain this. Does not feel right. And they go back to the way that they were before, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same things, doing the same actions. And their life is like the same thing over and over again. They're stuck in that same cycle. But if you change the roots, then every thought that you think will determine that feeling, and that feeling will produce much more fruitful actions that will transform your life, not only for a few days or a few months, but for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I know I talk a lot about like sustainable weight loss, and sustainable weight loss is essentially getting the weight off, but actually fixing your mind. Because if you could fix your mind, then you can sustain any good habit over time. But if your mind is still stuck of, I'm ashamed, I'm not good enough, whatever, then you're going to constantly self-sabotage, because you're going to be in that cycle of, that kind of rinse and repeat cycle of, I feel bad, I ate too much. And then now, now I feel even worse because I just went and ate too much, or I didn't get my workout in. So now I want to eat more, or want to, like, it's just in this constant cycle of like shame and beating yourself up. I know I had a conversation with a gal who reached out to me the other day, and she like the sweetest gal, but she's writing in the message that she was like, yeah, I something like I'm really stupid, or I can't stick to a plan. I've tried this, but it never works for me. And so I pulled all those things out and I put them in a row for her. And I said, do you hear what you're saying about yourself? I said, would you talk to anybody else like this? And she's like, oh my goodness, I always thought I was a positive person. I didn't realize I was saying those things. And that same person, she's very overweight. That's why she was reaching out to me, right? So do I just say, oh, well, here's a meal plan, go do this? Or do I say, hey, let's fix, and it's not overnight. It's not a snap of a fingers, but let's fix some of those mindsets. And then not only can you lose weight with this meal plan, say, but now we can actually keep it off because we've changed the way we think. And it's such a journey, isn't it, Andrew? Like, and that's what's so hard. People don't necessarily get that. And they're not like, oh yeah, I'm going to sign up with Andrew for, 6 months or a year. No, they just want a quick, like, give me a 60-day program, take all my weight off, and then like, I'll be good to go. Right. But that's not the way it works.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If that was the way that it works, it's funny you mentioned that. It's like anyone who would start a program, a fitness program of any kind, a New Year's resolution, they would stick to their goals. But unfortunately, when you go to the gym or you go start a workout plan, you're only kind of scratching the surface. You're just taking care of what's on the outside. And if that's all you're doing, you're going to go back to your original thoughts and the way that you're living life before. That's why the majority of people can only sustain that for a little bit, right? Unless they have some type of accountability or program that they're following. And even that, I've had so many clients in the past that, let's say they lost 50 pounds working with me for, I don't know, 6-12 months. And they're like, I learned enough to do on my own, but we never really tackled the mindset before. This was me before. We would just, okay, you lost your body fat, you're eating healthy now, cool, we did our accountability, you're doing amazing. But like, they're like, oh, I know all the tools now to apply this in my life. So they do it themselves, but slowly their minds and their way of thinking is bringing them back to how they originally were. And now the weight is starting to creep back on. They're eating foods that may not necessarily be the best for them, and they're doing more of it. And then they're slowly going back to square one. And I've seen this time and time again because we haven't taken care of the actual root cause.
Yeah. And so what would you say to someone who has limiting beliefs right now? And maybe they don't like what's a way to figure out what your limiting beliefs are? Like, it's kind of a big question, but I
Hmm.
think a lot of us we don't realize. Like I was just talking to a lady today, and she was sending me messages, and she was saying, "Well, I'd like to eat healthy, but it's really expensive." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Well, who told you that eating healthy is expensive? Like that's right there a limiting belief." So you'll go and you'll stop at the fast food restaurant, you'll do all these other things, and you'll get the quote unquote cheap food. But if you just went to the grocery store and bought a bag of apples when they were on sale, and then went over and picked up some vegetables, like nothing fancy, just maybe some carrots, maybe a little bit of broccoli, like you can eat healthy and still not break
Hmm.
the bank, right? But that's a limiting belief. So now she thinks anything that's healthy is expensive. Therefore, I don't eat healthy stuff because that's only for rich people and I'm not rich. Boom, there's a huge
Hmm.
limiting belief right there. So when she was reaching out to me before, well, I actually was just talking to her, but before I would even tackle that, I would have to say, okay, let's talk about this first, right? Like, is that true?
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah. That can go so many different ways, and that is a big question. I think it depends on what that limiting belief is. But I think a big part of that is what we've been accustomed to, what society has taught us, and what we've been taught. So I think it's going to go back to checking the source of that limiting belief. Where'd you learn
mhm,
this from? Who told you this? And
mhm.
then checking on it. What's the proof of this limiting belief? Because we all just accept it. So yeah, if, eating healthy is expensive. That's what I've been taught. Or in order to be healthy and lose weight, I have to step on the scale and I have to see that number go down every single time, or I'm not losing any fat. Right?
Mhm.
It's so I think it's what society has kind of fed us and what other people have taught us. It's a combination of that, and it's also a combination of our fears and our thoughts and emotions. So I think going back to the source and kind of checking it, is this really true? And asking yourself that question and trying to prove yourself, hey, is this, if you can prove yourself that this limiting belief is correct, then you're probably right. But if you go back and be like, you know what, this doesn't make sense, then you may need to kind of revisit that and work on that limiting belief, or seek somebody out who can help you with that. And because I was all my limiting beliefs, I was never able to figure out on my own. I had to have help of other people who could see what I wasn't seeing.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I would have been kept having my blinders on, believing what I was believing, making the same old mistakes again, versus someone being like, hey, you know what, Andrew, let's just go this way. This isn't right. Let's point you in this direction. This limiting belief that you had is not true, and this is why. And having that kind of process to go through was very eye-opening. So I think just going through that journey and checking yourself is what's going to kind of get you to get rid of that limiting belief.
Yeah, and I
And
think just
sometimes you got to, yeah.
I was gonna say
I was
just
going to say, sometimes you have to borrow that from other people,
mhm.
borrow that and that wisdom, borrow that belief that, hey, for example, you, Carla, you're teaching these women eating healthy isn't expensive. So now they're coming to you. So now you're able to shift their false beliefs. Now they can see it, and now they have completely changed their beliefs of that. No, eating healthy can actually be very cost effective, right?
Mhm. And in many
So
cases,
having that person,
more cost effective in
yeah,
some cases. But you're right. Like it's
exactly.
like somebody has to see that in you or believe in you if you don't have it yourself. So I feel like,
Hmm.
yeah, there's so much to this, Andrew. Like I feel like it's like, oh, I want to go in this direction, I want to go in this direction, but I want to be on here for 3 hours, so we're gonna have to like,
Yeah.
shorten it a little bit. But it just it opens up a whole thing. But I just think what I'd love the listeners to hear from Andrew and from our conversation is just be aware that you might actually have a limiting belief
Hmm.
and be open to noticing what that might be. I think that's huge. And a lot of
Exactly.
people have that around something like money, right? Like how many people are talk about money like, well, rich people are greedy or like they just stuff that they believe. So therefore they never make much money because anytime they start making money, like they have it in their head, like I don't like anything over say $50,000 a year is like that's a rich person. So it's almost like just by thinking about that, they're obviously going to keep themselves only making
Mm-hmm.
like 40,000 a year because anything up that is like, oh, but now I'm getting greedy. And they don't even notice it. It's completely
Yeah.
subconscious, but they do that to themselves. And I think a lot of people, especially in business, that's a huge thing they have to get over because if they keep thinking that way, but they need to be open to, well, is there another way to think? Because this is just what I've always learned. And there's that analogy too of like, the lady who's going to make a roast. So she puts the roast in the oven and she's like, yeah, I always cut the end off and I season it like this. And this is what my mom always did. And then she asks her mom, because somebody asked her, why do you cut the end off it? Oh, that's just the way you do it. And then she asked her mom, she's like, well, I don't know, that's just the way my mom always did it. And then they finally go to the grandma, why did you always cut that end? Oh, because the roasting pan was too small and it wouldn't fit in, right? And it's like, oh, so all this time people just keep carrying on, even though it's really not necessary. It has no value anymore. So I think we have to really look at like, why are we believing this, and where did this come from, and is it still relevant for me, or is this completely just a lie that I've been kind of eating this whole time?
Yeah, question everything. It's funny when you said that. It reminds me of my daughter. She's almost 6 now, and literally everything is, why do you do it this way? And it almost like gets me and my wife to think, you know what, why do we do it that way?
Right.
It's like we're like thinking about, does this make sense?
Yeah.
No, we just do it that way. This is the way you do it. Why are you asking why?
Right.
So we just, instead of just accepting things as the way they are, question it. Really test yourself. Hey, is this true? Why are you doing it this way? Why do you feel this way? And then you're gonna realize some things about yourself and about the world that you may have not realized if you didn't question it in the first place.
Yeah,
kind of got to get ourselves out of that bubble,
Oh yeah, this is gold, and I hope anybody who's listening to this, and if they haven't, like, most people listening to this have gotten some of this already. They've figured out that they have limiting beliefs. They've figured out that they need to fix their mindset, and they've probably done things to change it. But if this is sounding kind of new to you and you haven't really thought about this, I really encourage you to really think through this, because it could be a lot more powerful than you realize. So, Andrew, I wanted to ask you a question. We'll wrap up fairly soon here. But where is God in your story? You talked about being that you're a man of faith. Where is God? How does God fit into all of this?
Yeah. I mean, everything that I do is essentially working God's plan. I've grown up, essentially a Catholic, but I never really knew what that meant. And it was kind of just me going through the motions. And it wasn't until I was able to figure out who God truly is and what his purpose for me is. And it's not about, the religion. It's really about the relationship you have with the God who created us. So it wasn't until I was able to do that I could really take action and know what my purpose is. So developing that relationship with God, and this was kind of with the influence of a lot of friends and other people who invited me to have that relationship with him. Otherwise, I would have never been able to do that. So just kind of being able to build off of that relationship, along with some rock bottom moments of my life that was like, hey, I surrender. I can't do this anymore. I'm not meant to do this on my own. I don't know how much longer I can last. It kind of got me to the point where, God, I do need you. Show me the way. So that led me to prayer. And then eventually trusting him more, learning more about him by reading the Bible, by committing myself every day to listen and to hear his word for me. And literally almost in a way like working with him, co-creating with him in everything that I do. Like this business that I'm running, helping people transform their bodies and their minds through health and fitness, is not just a thing that I do myself. This is his ultimate plan for me, and he's using me to change people. But I have to allow myself to be open to that part so that he can work through me. Otherwise, I'm closing myself off, and I'm very limited by myself. So being able to let him into my life has allowed me to see these changes that I've never seen, kind of like work on my inner self and be able to help people in ways that I never would have imagined. Kind of like in this conversation that I'm having with you right now, I didn't plan for this. So I think he is speaking through me. Because you'll know if it's almost like an out of body experience. Say, I can't believe I just said all that. Like, what? Who was this really me that just said this? So I think he's working with me every single day, but I have to allow myself to let him do that. And I'm not saying this is an easy thing. It's a daily commitment you have to make. You have to be super intentional about having that relationship with him, just like you would when you're working out, when you're following a program. It's the same thing. So that's his impact in my life. I know he has more for me. He has bigger plans for me. So that's what I'm working on right now. So it's definitely a journey, and there's always going to be something next. It's never like, oh, you did this, cool, you succeeded. No, this is just part of it. It's kind of like you're in a video game, right? At every level of that video game, you got to learn a lesson before you move on to the next level of that video game, and then you have to learn that next lesson. You can't just skip all these levels and expect to just win the game or beat the game and be at the top. Every level that you're in has a purpose, has a lesson for you to learn. Once you learn that, you move on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And that's how we progress in life with the challenges. So I hope that answered your question. I didn't get off
No, that's
too
good.
much off track there.
Yeah, and everything that you say, I'm just like, oh, I totally hear you, Andrew. Like I used to be more like when it came to, well, anything in my life, like you talked about closing yourself off. And as you were doing that, I was feeling the same way. I just wanted to clench my fist because that idea of like, okay, God, my kids, my business, my life, my friend, like everything is mine. And like, I'm just going to kind of hold on to this and just keep it tight. And God, like every once in a while, I'll kind of open my fist a little bit and say, okay, God, it's actually yours. No, I got to close it. Like, but to just say, okay, God, I'm open-handed. This business is yours. My family is yours. And you pray about it. And you say, God, I am with you on this. I am that kind of open vessel that you can use.
Yeah.
And when we do that, and when God is at work with us, we have all the power, right? So God will do whatever he wants. And whether that means like, you know what, you're going to get, like maybe he wants to keep you doing smaller things for whatever purpose, because his ultimate purpose is that you get to know him, not that you become some rock star, right? Like his ultimate purpose is, do you have a deep understanding and is your life abundant in Christ? I think that's the huge thing. Yes. And so I feel like that's so important. So when I say, okay, my business is yours, God, my family is yours, my life is yours, my eating is yours, because I struggle with, binge eating I have in the past. It's all yours, God. Use it as you would want, which is exactly what you said, Andrew. I just feel like, that is so powerful. And that's really only something that God can show, because we're naturally going to want to hold everything to ourselves. And I feel like sometimes God has to say, no, Andrew, no, Carla, you actually can't do it yourself. Because if we think we can, we'll just keep trying. But then, like you said, that rock bottom moment where you're suddenly like, I cannot do this. Man, it's actually a blessing that God takes you to that place. Otherwise, you would just keep doing it on your own and you would miss out on all that God has for you, right?
It truly is. It's definitely a blessing, and we don't realize it until we're through it, right? We look back and you're like, you know what? That was actually a really good reason that happened. I'm very grateful that happened. But when you're in that moment, it's like, this is terrible. This sucks. Why is this happening to me? But also want to kind of add to that everything in life, I don't know what you're going through right now, you, Carly, your listeners, but everything is happening for you. It's not happening to you. It's happening for you for a specific reason. And it's up to you to learn what that lesson is and listen and be attentive to it. And then once you can learn what life is teaching you at this moment, you can move on. And you will be in a much better place. It's kind of like before you climb the hill, you have to be in that valley. But before you get up that valley, you have to have the tools to climb out of that valley and then get up on the hill. Once you're on the hill, you look down the valley. That polarity of the valley and the hill is what makes the hill so much greater. The lows make the highs so much higher, right? Because if we were just all experiencing highs, we wouldn't really be grateful. It wouldn't really be that special. So I feel like those low points in our lives are so important, and we have to take it for what it is, because it is there for a reason, and it's for a good reason.
Yeah, but when you're in the middle of it, you're probably just shaking your head and shaking your fist and be like, there's no reason for this. But when you look back,
oh my gosh,
I think that's where you have to just be patient. And like you talked about, trust God. Yes. You have to say, God, I don't understand this. I'm frustrated about this. This doesn't make sense to me, but I'm just going to trust that whatever you have for me is better than what I would do on my own. And this certainly isn't something I would pick on my own, but just help me to trust God and help me to walk through this, right? Like, what else do you do when you're in like at the bottom of the barrel,
No, you keep spinning your wheels until you're like, you know what, this ain't working anymore. So It's up to us. It's a choice. You can keep doing what you've been doing and keep getting what you're getting, or you can totally take a leap of faith and do something you never thought you would have and open yourself up to the possibilities. And now life is, you're looking at life in a completely different lens now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Andrew, where would people go to find you? So say somebody might be listening and they're like, oh, I totally love what Andrew's talking about. This is really resonating with me. Or maybe they have questions or they have concerns or they just want to talk to somebody even. Where can they go to connect with you, Andrew?
Yeah. If you resonate with me, you can find me. I'm mainly on Facebook. I also have an Instagram, but just search my first and last name, Andrew. Last name is Catalla. That's Catalla. Shoot me a follow, a friend request. I'd love to connect with you. Ask me any questions you have, and we'll get connected.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing this, Andrew. It's really, really good stuff, really powerful stuff when we're allowing ourselves to actually delve into that. And so, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, this was an honor, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks for having me.
This episode is brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. We are a tight-knit fitness community, and we guide you every step of the way to get fit and stay fit through our live workouts, nutrition coaching, and incredible support team. Go to powerfitnessedson.com to learn more. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, or wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I would love to see your comments. I would love to know what you think about this episode and interact with you. I love hearing from you. Once again, I'm Carla Rand, and this is The Carla Rand Show, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next episode.